Captain Rowan Hale had 36 minutes to save 5 people she'd sworn to protect. The enemy had 72 fighters, 3 heavy guns, and her exact coordinates. She had 1 rifle, 91 bullets, and a promise to her dead sister. No one else dies on my watch. Grey Knife Valley was supposed to be a simple mission. Infiltrate, observe, extract. But someone had burned them. Now 3 enemy columns were closing in from every direction, and air support was still half an hour out. Rowan took her position on the ridge, pressed her eye to the scope, and whispered one word. 1. By sunset. That number would be 41. Before we begin, tell us where are you watching from, and if you believe honor and courage still matter, help keep their legacy alive. Captain Rowan Hale had 36 minutes to save 5 people she'd sworn to protect. The enemy had 72 fighters, 3 heavy guns, and her exact coordinates. She had 1 rifle, 91 bullets, and a promise to her dead sister. No one else dies on my watch. Grey Knife Valley stretched below her like a wound in the earth-dry riverbeds, broken ridges, wind that carried every breath. Somewhere out there, 3 enemy columns were closing in. The sound of engines bled through the mountains like thunder. Her team, Task Element Marrow 2, was dug into an abandoned shepherd's compound halfway up the slope. The mission had been simple: infiltrate, observe, exfil, until it wasn't. Rowan adjusted her scope and checked her comms, static. Then a voice, calm, certain. Marrow 2, this is Calder. We've been burned. Cast delayed 36. We hold here. Lieutenant Ethan Calder never raised his voice. He didn't need to. Everyone listened when he spoke. Rowan glanced down at the others through her scope. Pierce, the comms tech, hunched over a receiver wrapped in foil to stop the interference. Mercer, the breacher, smoked a short cigar, superstition more than habit. Riley, their medic, checked her rifle with hands that never trembled. And Troy, the navigator, drew range lines in the dust like it mattered. South contact confirmed. Troy called out. About 20 vehicles. Closing fast, Pierce added. Picking up 2 more convoys on the net, west and north. Calder's reply was dry. So we're surrounded. Perfect. Rowan smiled without humor. That's one way to put it. She shifted, belly flat on stone, and sighted south. The first targets appeared, dots moving against the horizon. 6 men jumped from a truck, 1 shouldering an RPG, another barking orders. 640 meters, she murmured. Crosswind left, half-breath, squeeze. The man dropped before his knees bent, second shot. The leader spun backward and fell. Rowan whispered. 1, not a prayer. A count. Mercer's voice came through, nice start. Hale. She didn't answer. Counting wasn't for ego. It was control. Another group broke from the tree line. She pivoted, lined up, fired again. The rifle kicked once. Smooth. Familiar. 2 bodies crumpled beside the truck. Westridge Riley shouted. Rowan rolled, glassed the slope, and saw a brief flash sunlight off a scope. Sniper. Her pulse stayed steady. The next bullet hit where her skull had been seconds earlier. Stone erupted, slicing her cheek. She smiled. There you are. She crawled 10 meters left, low and silent, found a new firing angle. Through the mirage shimmer, a barrel protruded from the rock. The enemy sniper waited, certain she was dead. He shifted half an inch enough. Rowan fired. The glint vanished. The ridge went still. Counter-sniper down, she said evenly. Mercer crackled over comms, half laughing. You scared yet not of him, she said. Not anymore. Calder's tone came cold. Focus up. We've got more coming. Below. The team scrambled to reinforce the walls. Pierce fought the radio again, desperate for a connection. Still no Cass, he muttered. They're 40 clicks out. Then it's us. Calder replied. We hold until they see smoke. Rowan took a sip from her canteen. The water tasted like iron and dust. Through the scope, the world narrowed to a circle of glass and breath. Every motion measured. Every second accounted for. The southern column was growing. 30, maybe 40 men now moving tactically, not in panic. This wasn't a mob. It was trained. They knew what they were doing. A technical truck swung into view, heavy gun mounted in the bed. Rowan tracked it, waited for the angle, and sent 3 rounds into the hood. The engine belched smoke. The gunner ducked, and the vehicle lurched to a stop. "Technical disabled," she reported. "Copy that." Calder answered. "Keep them guessing." Dust clouds rolled across the valley floor. From above, it looked almost peaceful until she zoomed in and saw the men advancing. 72 hostiles. 5 of them. 30 minutes left. Pierce's voice broke through, sharp and anxious. "They're coordinating fire. We've got machine guns setting up at the tree line." Rowan adjusted elevation. Sighted on the flash of metal. 1 shot. The gunner dropped. 2. The loader fell beside him. "Target neutralized," she said. Her voice never rose. It didn't need to. Calder's last order for the minute came low, deliberate. "Marrow 2, listen up. We hold this valley, or we don't go home." Static crackled. No one replied. They didn't have to. Rowan reloaded, chambered around, and wiped blood from her cheek. Through the lens, she saw the horizon alive with movement 3 directions at once. She whispered to herself, quiet as prayer. Then we hold. The sun dipped behind the ridge, and the valley turned gold, then red. Dust and heat shimmered through Rowan's scope, distorting the distance. The wind shifted, unpredictable, a sniper's worst enemy. She recalculated, adjusted elevation, and fired. The round clipped a rock inches from her target. She exhaled through her nose, steady, deliberate. Mirage is changing. They're adapting. Below, Mercer reinforced the doorway with sandbags. "Every direction's bad news." He grunted. "Pick one. I'll cover the other 2. Riley's voice came soft but firm. "We cover them all. That's the job." Pierce tapped his earpiece. "Comms are toast. They're jamming everything above short range." Calder answered without looking up. "Then we fight old school. Hand signals only." He raised 2 fingers, pointed west. Rowan adjusted her scope to match. The west ridge crawled with silhouettes. 15, maybe 20 hostiles, advancing in pairs. She marked them, then shifted slightly south to cover Mercer's blind side. The first man in line lifted an RPG. Rowan squeezed. The launcher fell before it fired. The second man reached for it and met the same fate. "West clear for now," she said. Calder's reply came low. "Copy. Don't waste rounds. Cast still 28 minutes out." Every minute stretched like an hour. Through the thermal scope, the world burned in grayscale. She tracked movement, small flares of heat crawling closer through the rocks. "They're testing us," she muttered, "figuring out our rhythm." Mercer's laugh cut through static. "Then let's make it unpredictable." He primed a claymore, set the trigger, and backed off with a grin. When 3 fighters rounded the corner, the explosion lit the compound like daylight. Riley flinched but stayed on her post, firing short, controlled bursts. Her calm steadied the group. Even Calder allowed himself a breath. But the silence that followed wasn't comfort, it was warning. From the north, the echo of movement swelled again. Different pace, different sound. "They're bringing in better-trained units," Rowan said quietly. Calder frowned. "How can you tell the way they move? Short bursts, controlled fire. They've done this before." Rowan turned her scope toward the southern tree line, the heart of the attack. A figure stood there, giving orders with a radio pressed to his ear. The man wasn't local. His posture was military. She fired once. He dropped instantly. The fighters around him hesitated, directionless for a moment. That pause was all they needed to reset their perimeter. Pierce swore under his breath. "I'm getting ghost signals from the ridge. That's not enemy chatter, that's ours." Rowan froze. "Say again." "Our encrypted channel. Someone's mirroring it." She swept her scope toward the ridge. A glint, faint, precise, caught the dying light. Her pulse slowed. "Sniper. Counter-operator. Same pattern as earlier." She centered the crosshair, squeezed, and watched the figure collapse. Then she zoomed in and saw something that drained the air from her lungs. The rifle beside the fallen sniper wasn't enemy standard, it was American. "Calder," she said, Her voice flat. That shooter's using an M2010. Silence answered. The same model as mine. Same scope. Same suppressor mount. Riley looked up from her post. You're saying Rowan adjusted the focus. I'm saying he wasn't one of them. Calder's tone hardened. Then who the hell trained him? No one replied. The question hung heavy, like smoke. The possibility was worse than the bullets. Rowan switched to her backup scope and scanned the ridge. Something inside her shifted, not fear, just cold realization. This wasn't random. Someone had mapped their every move. Cass update, Calder asked. Pierce checked his damaged radio. 20 minutes, maybe less. Then we buy 20, Calder said. No matter the cost. The sound of gunfire rolled closer again. 3 directions at once, coordinated like a textbook assault. Rowan fired fast. 2 shots. 3. Moving target to target. Her cheek burned from the earlier graze. Blood drying under the sun. She barely noticed. The world had narrowed again. Angles. Distance. Rhythm. Kill. Shift. Breathe. Mercer's laughter crackled through comms again. Still counting. Hale 10, she said quietly. It wasn't bragging. It was math. Survival math. A gust lifted dust into her scope, blurring vision. She blinked, refocused, and saw shapes moving through the haze. Then a burst of static, followed by Pierce's voice. Urgent. They're flanking east. 10 meters from the compound. Riley was already moving, rifle raised. She fired through the breach as Mercer threw his last grenade. The explosion thundered, close enough to shake Rowan's teeth. When the dust cleared, the east wall was half gone, but the attack had stopped. Bodies scattered, and through the ringing silence, Rowan's breathing slowed again. Status Calder demanded. All up, Riley replied. Ammo's low, but we're alive. Calder nodded once. Good. We hold. Rowan rechecked her rifle, reloaded her last full mag. The sky was turning darker now, the air cooler. Somewhere in the static, she thought she heard her sister's voice, soft, distant, familiar. You see for those who can't. She blinked, looked through her scope again. The valley was moving, shadows stretching, enemies regrouping. Still here, she whispered, and chambered another round. The night fell hard over Grey Knife Valley. Moonlight spilled across the stone ridges like silver fire, but the wind carried only the sound of boots and metal. Rowan adjusted her scope. Her vision glowed green through the night optic. The battlefield had shifted. The enemy wasn't charging blindly anymore. They were coordinated, patient, waiting for darkness to cover them. Calder's voice came steady over short-range comms. All sectors on standby. Expect full push any minute. Pierce checked his receiver again, sweat streaking the dust on his face. Comms are half up. I've got partial link to Redwater, but signal's weak. Rowan didn't answer. Her finger rested lightly against the trigger, then movement faint, low, deliberate. A cluster of heat signatures advancing through the south approach, weaving between rocks. She switched to thermal, counted 9, all armed. South contact, engaging. Her first shot cracked through the night. The lead fighter dropped instantly, the others scattered, shouting in panic. Mercer leaned out from behind a broken wall. They're probing again, testing the perimeter. Calder nodded grimly. They'll hit from 3 sides when it starts. Keep your sectors locked. Riley reloaded beside him, calm under pressure. Her voice was barely above a whisper. We've still got 1 claymore left. Make it count. Mercer grinned. You always know how to make me smile before hell. The west ridge flared with muzzle flashes. Automatic fire rained down, spraying sparks from the stone. Riley and Mercer returned fire, tight and controlled. Their rhythm practiced and deadly. Rowan swung her scope toward the ridge, picking off shadows moving between bursts of light. 6 down, she muttered. 7. Her breath stayed slow, heartbeat even. Mechanical precision against chaos. Then something bright arced through the air, a grenade, rolling to a stop inches from Mercer's boot. He froze. Rowan didn't. She fired. The bullet hit midair, detonating the grenade in a burst of orange and dust before it touched the ground. For 1 heartbeat, everything went silent. Mercer looked at her through the haze, eyes wide. Then he laughed, half crazed, half relieved. You're insane. Rowan just chambered another round. Stay alive, that's all that matters. The pause ended with a roar. From the ravine. A new wave poured forward, 20 fighters rushing the northern wall. Calder barked orders, his voice cutting through gunfire. Hold positions. Don't let them close. Rowan pivoted to the north, found her angles fast. Each shot dropped another target before they reached the 100-meter mark. But there were too many. Pierce Calder yelled, "Air support ETA." Pierce slammed his fist against the receiver. "Still dark, I'm working on it." Static screamed through their headsets, interference climbing again. Rowan adjusted elevation, eyes scanning the northern ravine. The fighters were climbing now, reckless but determined. Her rifle cracked again and again, 20 meters, 15, 10. A single figure broke ahead of the rest, sprinting with a satchel charge. Rowan fired, missed by inches. Riley's burst caught him instead, dropping him at the wall's edge. North clear, Riley called out. "Not yet," Rowan answered. More shadows moved behind the ridge reinforcements. She pulled the bolt, fired again, but her magazine ran dry. Reload. Inhale. Fire. Every second bought them another breath. Then Pierce's voice broke through, static dissolving mid-sentence. Redwater command. Responding. Cass inbound. 15 minutes, Calder grinned. You heard him, 15 more minutes, and we get our angels. But Rowan wasn't smiling. She'd seen something in the chaos, a flash of red from a fallen pack. When the dust cleared, she crawled over and pulled it closer. A blinking transmitter, small and surgical, nestled inside a spare radio battery. Not enemy issue. You... Design? She stared at it, the color draining from her face. Her hands trembled for the first time that night. She'd seen that same red light before 6 months ago. Another valley. Another team. Her sister's team. Flashback. A broken convoy. Static on the radio, and her sister's last words. They knew we were coming. They knew everything. That day, Rowan had promised no one else would die because of bad intel. Now she understood it wasn't bad luck. It was betrayal. Someone had put a target on them, just like before. She stuffed the transmitter into her pocket and keyed her mic. Calder, I found something. Our gear's compromised. What do you mean, he demanded. Tracker. Same type used in my sister's unit. Calder froze, realization sinking in. How long's it been active? Long enough, she said. The wind howled through the gaps in the wall, carrying distant shouting. They're coming again. Pierce's voice came back, barely audible. 12 minutes till Cass. Calder's reply was cold steel. Then 12 more minutes of hell. Rowan took position again, scope glowing faint red. The valley pulsed with movement, the last assault forming, unstoppable momentum. Her jaw tightened. Let them come. She centered the crosshairs on the first silhouette and whispered the number. 30. Then pulled the trigger. The first light of dawn bled over Grey Knife Valley. Smoke coiled from burning trucks, painting the horizon in shades of ash. Rowan sat against the cracked wall, rifle across her knees, watching the sky turn pale. The gunfire had stopped 40 minutes ago. The only sounds now were the hum of distant engines and the rasp of her own breathing. They'd survived barely. Calder's voice broke the silence. Everyone sound off. Pierce. Here. Riley. Good. Mercer. Alive somehow. Troy's fine. Rowan didn't answer. She was staring at the blinking transmitter still in her hand. She turned it over once, studying the faint red light. Same model. Same signature as the one found beside her sister's body 6 months ago. History didn't just repeat it, hunted. Pierce called out. Bird inbound, 2 minutes. They gathered what was left of their gear. Rowan pocketed the transmitter before anyone noticed. The extraction chopper roared in low, kicking up waves of dust and embers. It hovered just long enough for them to run aboard. Calder climbed last, scanning the ridge one more time before pulling the ramp closed. As the helicopter lifted off, the valley shrank beneath them. Fires flickered like dying stars. Rowan stared down, silent. Pierce leaned over. You good? She nodded once. 41. What 41 confirmed? She said softly. That's the count. He smiled faintly. You're something else. Hale. She didn't respond. Her mind was already elsewhere back in Redwater, where this had started. 25 minutes later, the helicopter touched down at Redwater Airfield. The base looked sterile under morning light, like nothing bad could ever happen there. But Rowan knew better. Command officers waited at the edge of the tarmac. A medic moved toward Riley, another toward Mercer's torn shoulder. An intelligence officer in a crisp uniform approached Calder, expression unreadable. "Good work out there," he said. "We'll take your gear for analysis." Pierce hesitated. "That's our comms pack." The officer cut him off. "Standard protocol." Rowan caught the man's eyes as he took the pack. Too smooth, too practiced. She'd seen that kind of calm before in people who already knew the story's ending. They were escorted to debriefing rooms one by one, concrete walls, fluorescent lights, stale coffee. The war never ended. It just changed scenery. When Rowan's turn came, she sat straight in the metal chair. Two officers faced her, notebooks open, voices flat. "Confirmed 72 hostiles engaged." "Yes. How many neutralized by your rifle?" 41 confirmed. "Cass accounted for the rest." She nodded. The man on her left jotted notes. "Any indication of insider compromise?" Rowan paused. "Possibly. We found a transmitter in our field gear." "What kind do you manufacture?" The man looked up sharply. "And what did you do with it?" "I handed it over." She lied. His face eased again, almost relieved. That was the right call. The right call. That phrase had buried her sister, too. After the session, Calder caught up with her outside the briefing hall. "You okay?" he asked. She looked tired but steady. "We both know something's off." He sighed. "I'll push for an internal audit." "Don't bother," she said. "They'll clean it before you even file it." He met her gaze sharp, understanding. "Then we find our own proof." She gave a faint nod. "That's the only way." Hours later, the base grew quiet. The others rested in the barracks, but Rowan couldn't. She walked the perimeter alone, the wind cold against her face. A low rumble caught her ear, a cargo truck backing into Hangar 7. Unmarked. Civilian plates. Same model used to load their gear before the mission. She stepped closer, staying in the shadows. A man in a flight jacket climbed out. His walk was military confident, unhurried. He glanced her way for a heartbeat, then disappeared inside the hangar. The security camera above the door flickered once, then went black. Rowan's pulse slowed. She pulled out her phone, opened a photo she'd taken in the field, the dead counter-sniper's shoulder patch faint but visible. JSOC, same unit emblem worn by Calder years ago. Her fingers tightened around the phone. This went deeper than a bad signal or a rogue contractor. Someone inside command had made them targets. She opened an encrypted app and typed a single message. The valley wasn't the mission. We were the target. Seconds later, a reply appeared. Hangar 12. Midnight. Come armed. She stared at the screen for a long moment, then slipped it back into her pocket. Outside, the floodlights washed the runway in pale white. The air smelled of fuel and secrets. Rowan walked toward the barracks, shoulders heavy, steps steady. Her notebook waited on her bunk. Inside, 6 names called her. Pierce, Mercer, Riley, Troy, Hale. Beside each, a small dot. Still here. She added a 7th name under them, Sarah Hale, then closed the book. The hum of generators filled the night. From across the runway, Hangar 7's lights flickered again, then went dark. Rowan didn't look back. She whispered to herself, low and certain. The valley's done. The war isn't. If you enjoyed the story, consider sending a super chat to help bring more stories like this. Now, click on the video on the screen to hear another story that's just as powerful and captivating with courage, sacrifice, and a choice that will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about duty and justice.